Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, another impact video and show we got tonight, the Sunday conversation. Plenty of stuff to discuss. I hope you guys enjoyed your weekend as we get ready for the new week. Going into hopefully a shorter week for some of you guys because Memorial Day is not this Monday, but next Monday. So hopefully you guys get to enjoy a long weekend coming up. But we've got plenty to discuss today when it comes to Pitt football. For starters, great class, obviously, for the Hall of Fame class coming up in the fall for Pitt. Notable names, Jury and Aaron Donald are in that group. Two more college football players to get on the board for Pitt. And again, as you can imagine, Aaron Donald and his overall success. Jury was another huge success at Pitt. Going to be great to talk about those guys tonight. Also, the ACC revenue. We're going to get into a little bit of the ACC. The Big 12 is talking a lot of smack about the ACC for numerous months, as we've seen for really, I mean, you shouldn't even say months. It's really the past like 2 or 3 years. The numbers come out again. I know people in the Big 12 are trying to backtrack and say we knew that the ACC was going to make more money, and they've always made more money. But the fact is that we are making more money, over $250 million more in new money when everything's put together. When it comes to distributions for this year, $47 million to each and every one of the institutions in the ACC. Now, that'll change coming up here in the future years as the success plan, the success initiative starts to go into place. I think the majority of teams will then bump down from $47 million to about $43 million, $44 million in that range, and then be able to dive up even more when it comes to on the lower portion of the ACC, about $43, $44 million. When it comes to next year, with the addition of Cal, SMU, and Stanford, if it was distributed on an equal basis, it would probably be closer to $50 million, if not a little bit higher than $50 million for the coming year in the ACC. But with the Success Initiative, the brands, all those teams, the majority of teams up at the top, especially when it comes to winning and brand initiatives, you're looking at Clemson, Miami, Florida State. Those teams will probably get in roughly into the $65, $70 million range per year, because of the college football playoff as well. We're going to talk about the college football playoff tonight, potentially auto bids. Again, I'm against the auto bids. I'm against anything when it comes to that. But the ACC and the Big 12 are fighting the Big 10 and the SEC when it comes to the potential of auto bids. Right now, the current model that they're trying to enforce is 4 auto bids for the SEC and the Big 10, 2 auto bids for the ACC and the Big 12, and then 1 auto bid for the group of 5. And then you have two at-large bids potentially. And Notre Dame would fight into one of those groups. I think Notre Dame's going to have to come down to a decision here pretty quickly if they want to decide to really join a conference or not. I know for a fact they don't want to join a conference at all from anybody that I've talked to. But the college football playoff is really starting to create a real hardcore dialogue. And the ACC has a great relationship with Notre Dame, and Notre Dame now locking long-term deals with Clemson, a 10-year scheduling agreement, which doesn't even count towards their 6 or 5 guaranteed games against the ACC. So that helps the ACC even more in terms of revenue, in terms of viewership, which is really good. Obviously, Pitt will have a marquee matchup against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish at Acrisure Stadium. I will certainly be there for that game this year, and we'll see how Pat Narduzzi and the Pitt Panthers battle against Marcus Freeman. And after a trip to the college football playoff and the national championship against Ohio State. But plenty more to discuss. And, of course, we have open Q&A, as always, guys, whenever it comes to your questions. Make sure right now you share this. Go ahead, like the video right now, subscribe to the show, and share this on Twitter. Share this on Facebook. Let's get more people involved. But before we get started, the show is always sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. As you can imagine, the Pitt Can, the Icy Light collaboration and sponsorship. There you have it here. Obviously, cool can. I'm not a big beer guy, but anytime you can go to Colonial Beer, they got a number of different selections that'll really meet your needs. And if I'm a place where I can go there for all my tailgates, any type of house parties that we have, we always go there. And anytime you can help out a small business like them who really evaluates the city, really does a great job with Pitt fans. I can assure you the amount of people that send me notifications that they've gone to Colonial Beer, a lot of Pitt parents go to Colonial Beer. They send me pictures, numerous different selections for you guys to check out when you're in there. But more importantly, Alan and Bill are season ticket holders. They're Alliance 412 members, and they're athletic fund director guaranteed sponsors as well. So they do a really good job with that and supporting Pitt athletics and especially Pitt football. So make sure you go in there and see them at Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Live Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. The show is also sponsored by Thompson Law Group with Brian Thompson. Call them at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. Again, a number of you guys got to meet Brian Thompson at the spring game. As you can tell, extremely funny guy, easy to talk to, but the guy that gets the job done. He does a tremendous job from top to bottom of being able to reach out, get you your needs, and figure out your problems. But when you reach out to him, he's a great family guy, comes from a great family, and has a great family. Does a lot of work in the community, especially, too, with his sons, his daughter. He's able to do a lot of good work with them, coaching, helping them develop. He does a great job. But when it comes to helping you, he's a lot better than the larger law firms. He looks at you as an individual, not a number. If he doesn't know the answer, he'll make sure he gets you the answer from someone else who knows it, and he'll guide you through the process of everything that you need. Make sure you call Thompson Law Group with Brian Thompson. Call them at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. The show is also sponsored by the K Collection, the coffee brand by Austin Kitchen from the Seattle Mariners organization. Again, go to www.thekingscraft.com. A great website. It's the black bag. It has the K Collection. The K Collection, the backwards K. Very cool design for a looking strikeout. Cool design, cool touch to that. If it's really good for Austin to help him go through a Major League Baseball season, it can certainly help you. It certainly helps me every day of the week, especially, too, on these weekends when I go to my office like I was this morning. I get going with the K Collection. Preferably me. I'm the big AK Espresso guy. I love the espresso. It really gets me going in the morning. And also, it's good for you. That's why it's able to be trained, but also tested for Major League Baseball. If it's able to help the professional athletes out, it can sure help us out. So, again, make sure you go to the K Collection, the coffee brand by Austin Kitchen at www.thekingscraft.com. The K Collection. Make sure you go get that brand today. In the comment section, WRW Pitt, always in here. Tremendous job. WRW Pitt, smash the like button and subscribe and join Alliance 412. Amen. So we got a number of different topics here tonight. I think we'll jump into the first one just real quick. Aaron Donald, as you can imagine, a guy easily a Hall of Famer in the National Football League, potentially one of the greatest defensive tackles, if not the best defensive tackle ever in the National Football League, goes into the Hall of Fame. Bob Jury also goes into the Hall of Fame. They will be honored when it comes to the August, probably September games, I think, depending upon who they face. I'm not sure who we're facing when they do that selection, that ceremony. But plenty of different guys going in. That group continues to get filed up. But, Aaron Donald was able to have an interview with Pat Bostic on 93.7 The Fan. We'll also talk about 93.7 The Fan tonight, too. Well, it's a little bit of a precursor. But was able to have an interview with 93.7 The Fan, talked about how Pitt was his hometown school. He wanted to go to Pitt. He loved Pitt. That was reasons why he went there. Dave Wanstead recruiting him. Greg Gattuso, a tremendous defensive line coach when he was at Pitt, was able to recruit Aaron Donald, saw something in him that no other school saw, and really goes on to be ACC Defensive Player of the Year, a unanimous All-American. I mean, the guy was an absolute freak, drafted in the first round by the Los Angeles Rams, or that the St. Louis Rams at the time became the Los Angeles Rams, wins the Super Bowl with the LA Rams, goes into retirement, and now he's really into the after portion of the football life and really into the business world, and he's doing a good job with Ready Nutrition. So really cool. Again, guys, really cool how Pitt does the Hall of Fame stuff now. It's really good overall to get that going. That was a part of Heather Light's initiative. She did a really good job with that kind of stuff, facility upgrades. She did a really good job there. Also, as we get into it here, the ACC Revenue. I'm going to share my screen with you guys here. Let me see. Present, share. See if it pops up here. There we go. Okay, guys, as you can see, very good article that was put out recently. Overall, I thought it was really good to be able to get a number of people in here. Let's see. Steve Berkowitz, with the ACC, Big 12, and Pac 12 releasing new tax returns today, Here is the roundup of total revenue for the fiscal year 2024. The Big Ten at $928 million. The SEC comes in at number 2, who actually lost revenue from the previous year, $839 million. The ACC, another record year for the ACC, another climb, another increase, $711 million. The Pac-12 at $566 million, and then the Big 12 at $493 million. So way ahead in terms of the Big 12. They have a new TV contract coming up. I know a lot of the Big 12 pundits were talking about how, this is the old Big 12 deal. We'll see what it looks like going forward. But also, too, the Big 12 does have more teams. I think one less team than the ACC. I think it'll probably be in the range of $45 to $50 million over the life of that deal. That deal goes from 2025 this year to 2030. And that's kind of where they're at. They really can't add anybody else because if they do, if they won't get a pro rata share, so it's really cutting more into the pie of the Big 12. So they're really stuck in the $45 to $50 million range, and the ACC is going to continue to climb. Now, when you look at the ACC, there's a number of different levels in terms of the brand initiatives, success initiatives. At the end of the day, if you win in the ACC, you're going to get more than $50 million. I can tell you that. Even if you were to get the least, about $44 million or $45 million, it's still the same in roughly the same area as the Big 12. So there's really no gain there. But overall, the ACC continues to climb because of the ACC network. It's $711 million. I would expect next year we're going to be close to, from all recent reports, from $711 million to potentially closer to $800 million because of the Dallas market with SMU, the Stanford market, and also the Cal market out in California. We're adding more subscriptions out there. So they're suggesting that the ACC network will provide even more capital next year as it continues to jump up because of those teams in the different markets, which is really, really good for the ACC overall and the teams that are currently in there. Let's see here. I'll probably dive into the article here. Oops, got to stop sharing here. Share this again here. Here we go, tax records. All right, here we go. So tax records show the SEC, Big 12, Pac-12 all had revenue decline. Well, if it bounces back here in a second. USA Today is playing some games right now. Here we go. Losses, here we go. The final business year for the Power 5 conferences, as college sports fans have come to know them, was not exactly business as usual, with schools' affiliations already beginning to change and various legal entanglements going on. 3 of the 5 conferences reported declines in total revenue on their federal tax records for the 2024 fiscal year, and the Power 5's combined total revenue very narrowly declined. So as you can imagine, again, 3 of the 5, the SEC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12, as you can imagine, the Pac-12 is no longer in existence. So the SEC and the Big 12 kind of dealing with some revenue declines right now. That's far from a cause for alarm, but it is for such a year-over-year decrease in non-pandemic affected years since USA Today Sports began compiling records by obtaining data back from the fiscal 2011 when the Big East Conference was still playing football and there were 6 power conferences. In most years, the annual increase has been at least $150 million. So we go through here. As the Big Ten and Southeastern Conference appear headed towards revenue booms on their ongoing 25 fiscal years, which they'll probably they're definitely going to see increases because of the deals, that likely will take at least $1 billion, take it to at least $1 billion. The Pac-12's demise and dispersal will help boost income for the Athletic Coast Conference and the Big 12. But with the ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12 providing their new returns this week in response to requests from USA Today Sports, the Big Ten and SEC have done so previously, The combined revenue tally for the fiscal 24 year, nearly $3.54 billion compared to a little more than $3.55 billion for the fiscal 2025 year. So a little bit less, not because of the Big Ten, but because of the SEC. So there's the Pac-12. Really don't need to go into that stuff because the Pac-12 is no longer there. The ACC, third among the Power Five, behind the Big Ten, number one, and the SEC, number two. The ACC is clearly in number three without a doubt. Jim Phillips was credited. Well, his preschool payouts range from $43.1 million to $46.4 million, except for Notre Dame, which received a $20.7 million. The average was third among the Power Five. Commissioners pay. Jim Phillips was credited with nearly $4.1 million in total compensation. That's pretty wild to think about, because overall, I had not been very impressed with a guy like Jim Phillips. I think he's done a pretty shitty job to begin with. Jim Phillips was credited with nearly $4.1 million in total compensation, including almost $3.95 million in base compensation. The base amount represents a roughly 50% increase over his total for the 2022 calendar year. This was a compensation adjustment as a direction of the board and the board of directors of conferences, which comprises school CEOs, a conference spokesperson said. The overview: the conference fiscal 24 year was nearly identical to 2023 in revenue of $706.7 million. Its outside legal expenses jumped from $7.2 million to $12.3 million amid the membership disputes with Clemson and Florida State, as well as the in-house litigation. Looking ahead, the revenue of the ongoing fiscal year will increase due to the additions of California. And again, we've talked about this. There's going to be an increase again, and probably a major increase for the ACC because of these three schools: California, Stanford, and SMU. And this will be the first year in which the conference's revenue sharing arrangements will take into account incentive payments and team success for football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. Under the settlement, the disputes of Clemson and Florida State during the fiscal year that began in July 1st of 2025. So for the 25-26 school year, the revenue sharing arrangements will also take into account viewership for football and men's basketball games covered by the ACC contract with ESPN and ACC Network. That kind of stuff to me is absolutely just bewilderment to me. I mean, to be honest with you, payouts dependent upon, because if you have the games on the ACC Network, they're not Nielsen rated. So when you look at overall adjustments to the viewership, I'm not really sure how they're going to enforce that or how they're going to do that. Again, this is me personally. This is me seeing the ACC bend the knee to Florida State, and Florida State, who is a university who has not done particularly well besides 2 years ago. And then besides 2015 and 2016 with Jimbo Fisher, since then, they have not done well in the ACC. This last season, Florida State only won 2 games, only won 1 game in the ACC, got absolutely demolished in conference play, was a horrible football team, easily the worst football team in the ACC. We'll see what they look like going into this year, but with Tommy Castellanos as their quarterback down there, he was recently benched at Boston College. Did not perform very well there, even with their short spurt of a run they had early on in the season. I don't know how well he'll do at Florida State. They're saying he's doing very well, but they said the same thing about DJU last year. So we're going to see and see how that finds out. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't be shocked if it does well. The Big 12, though, for instance, here, this is pretty crazy. Revenue, $493.8 million, fourth among the Power Five. Per school payouts range from $37.8 million to $42.1 million for the schools other than newcomers BYU, Houston, Central Florida, and Cincinnati, which averaged about $20 million apiece. The larger payouts were fourth among the Power Five. Commissioner Brett Yormark, he just received an actual new deal here recently, was credited with a total nearly of $4.4 million, including just over $2.5 categorized as a base pay and $1.2 million in bonus pay. The conference total revenue declined, and here's the crazy part. The conference total revenue declined about $17 million from the fiscal 2023 amount, and the conference reported a nearly $37 million annual operating deficit. I mean, this is absolutely, horrible on numerous levels. I mean, how that could even happen is wild overall. That is a very bad look for the Big 12. People have talked about the Big 12 being hyped up by the Big 12 pundits, but the Big 12 pundits don't want to talk about the reality of the conference as it continues to decline. And really, as it shows, whether it's on the field play or when it comes to revenue, they really are the fourth best conference of the Power Five and now the Power Four. So they continue to have their issues there. But more into a deep dive here. While revenue in 4 areas covered by tax records increased, its bowl revenue dropped from just over $157 million in fiscal 2023 to $110. So losing $47 million there. And a statement of the conference said this was mainly due to the college football playoff semifinal rotation, which resulted in the Big 12 not being contracted to appear in the Sugar Bowl during the fiscal cycle. As previously reported, Oklahoma and Texas received full revenue shares for their final year in the conference, even as the 4 new schools joined. So it's pretty crazy to see that overall. That's really it for that whole thing. There we go. So as we keep going through this again, the ACC continues to climb in revenue. The biggest thing with the ACC at this point is down the road when it comes closer to 2030. And I've said this through numerous different times, and the Big 12 pundits never liked it. They were upset when I talked about it. But the fact is, I said anything and nothing would happen before 2030. And that's really the path that we're on at this point. From my understanding, from talking to numerous people between the Big Ten and people who are affiliated with the SEC, they have really no intention of adding anybody to either conference right now because of the deals they're on. The deals they're on do not have any pro rata when it comes to certain teams that join the conference. They would not add more money. Clemson and Florida State, for all their intents and purposes, I think that North Carolina would more than likely be the biggest attraction to the SEC or the Big Ten. But when you look at both schools, they have nowhere to go because the SEC and the Big Ten are not adding anywhere. And I tried to tell the Big 12 pundits that. Florida State fans didn't want to hear that. I know there's a lot of pundits online that didn't want to talk about it, but that's the truth. And I think that, I'm not very happy with, Commissioner Jim Phillips really conceding to, the viewership portion of things when it comes to teams that get the most viewership. Personally, I think that's bullshit. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. In no other sport is that even a qualification. Viewership does not go into that effect. It is based on the results of those teams. The results, if they're on primetime television, that makes sense. They get more money from ESPN because they're on primetime. But overall, it's based upon the actual play on the field. And Florida State has not held up that end of the bargain. The ACC has really not benefited from that because of the bad and lousy play of the Florida State Seminoles. So we'll continue to watch and see what they look like. Clemson is the same way. No one really wants Clemson right now. So I don't expect anything crazy to happen to the conference until 2030. And with the ACC and the ESPN dropping the grant of rights down to, I think it's going to be $185 million by 2030 or by 2027 to 2030 on. To me, it's pretty simple. There's a big shift coming probably in 2030 is what I've been told. And whether it's a super conference that comes aboard with the power, with the Power Four, something's definitely going to happen in 2030, and it's the make or break. And I've said this before, and from time and time again, I've said it from here into there. The ACC and for Pitt's next 5 years, 2025 through 2030, is a major, major upheaval for Pitt. And they need to provide more wins. They need to get back on track to where they were in 2021. There were a number of different things throughout that whole cycle with, Heather Lyke and Pat Narduzzi that did not like. Multiple reports and multiple sources reported to me that Heather Lyke and Pat Narduzzi talked about how they thought NIL was going to go away during the 2021, going into the 2022 season. That was completely naive. And it also led to one of the reasons why Heather Lyke is no longer the athletic director at Pitt. The lack of vision around NIL, which was a major factor in what Pitt needs to do to be productive when it comes to being supportive in the NIL world. Alan Green has come on board. Alan Green, from people who have reached out to me, said, we haven't seen a lot of Alan Green. Well, Alan Green behind the scenes, guys, I'm not sure what people want him to talk about. I guess the only thing that would make people happy is if he came out, and just had an interview and just said everything's going to be okay. But he had a recent report in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette talking about how he was brought into Pitt to create change and really dive the university into a way of making more revenue, generating more revenue, and competing in the NIL space. He's also said that they're going to use the $20.5 million to its limit. From my reports, from my sources, 75% of the 75 to 80%, potentially even a little bit more than 80%, will be thrown towards football. The second portion of that will be thrown towards men's basketball, and then the rest between women's basketball and volleyball, from what I've heard from numerous sources. Alan Green has hired 2 individuals from Ole Miss and the University, in Notre Dame, 2 individuals who are coming in to help generate brand recognition, brand engagement, but also generating more revenue. They've done a good job with that. Pitt continues to hold on to Alliance 412 because Alan Green has stated on multiple interviews that the $20.5 million is great, but the NIL deals can push them over $20.5 million if they're real NIL deals. And with Pitt being in a great city, a top 30 market around the country, there's multiple different deals that are out there. I've heard a number of corporate sponsorships, Dick's Sporting Goods, a number of different banks downtown who are really involved, a lot of private organizations in the city of Pittsburgh that are involved. They're willing to throw money towards Alliance 412 and those corporate partnerships to help create real NIL deals with athletes at the University of Pittsburgh. So he's doing work behind the back end. I can understand in a way maybe if he's got to get out more often. I know we were in the club area before the spring game, and the first thing he talked about is, the whole point is for people to buy the season tickets, which they've added now over, from what I was told a couple of days ago, over what is it, 53? It was 53 or 5,400. I'll have to find the text here. 53 or 5,400 new season tickets. The price of the season tickets has gone up to adjust for the NIL, which is a really good thing because Pitt's going to be spending to that limit, which is a good thing. And again, other universities across the board have been doing that. University funds will probably be involved in that as well as the new house settlement will go through. And I think overall, when you look at the area of Pitt football, as long as they continue to generate that cash, it's a really good thing overall for them to generate more and more cash. Let me see here. More. Am I seeing questions here? Let's see here. If I can find it here. Back there. Just want to make sure, guys, making sure I'm not missing any super chats either, but I'll go over there here real quick. Just want to make sure because they get highlighted on my screen here. There we go. All right, we're good there. So, no super chats here. Again, guys, get your question up on the screen. Not a lot of questions here tonight. A little bit less viewership here than usual. But if you do have a question, you want to donate to the podcast, down below is a super chat button down below. Again, hit the like button down below. Hit the like button. Share this on X, on Facebook. We'll get more in the conversation. But when it comes to Pitt, the biggest thing when it comes to the Pat Narduzzi era, and again, there's questions revolving around Pat Narduzzi's tenure. What's going to look like? What's that going to look like down the road in the future? Pitt needs to win more. That's number one. Okay. And people ask me the amount of times that people have asked me, well, is Pitt going to look to join the Big Ten, or if the ACC falls apart, or all those questions always come up. The reality is that Pitt needs to win more. That's number one. But number two, Pitt fans really need to show up and start going to games when Pitt is 7-0, when Pitt is 7-1, and creating more of a vibe around the city of Pittsburgh. And that also leads me into another huge category, 93.7 The Fan. And again, it's absolutely bewilderment to me when I look at this stuff. And I put it on here. I had it on my my Twitter page here. Share my screen with you guys here. What I don't understand is this. You look here at Andrew Filipponi. Again, they're supposed to be the fan support group, or the station of the Pitt Panthers. He puts out this tweet about Penn State lacrosse, which, I mean, let's be realistic. No one's watching Penn State lacrosse. No one gives a shit. I mean, at the end of the day, we all care about. At the end of the day, we care about football and basketball. But to even put that, beat defending champ Notre Dame. Honestly, there's no better athletic department in America. Football, volleyball, hockey, now lacrosse. We are really good. What kills me is that when you look at this stuff from a perspective of That's supposed to be our station on the radio. I've been a huge proponent to talking to people within the athletic department, from people outside the athletic department who can get into those conversations. Pitt's got a beautiful studio in the Peterson Event Center. Pitt should really be on the radio on their own station and have people 3 times a day, have shows on there 3 times a day talking straight Pitt football, Pitt basketball. I think also the ACC network could be a lot better, showing previous football games and previous basketball games on the network. At the end of the day, football drives everything else. They should show a lot of great games on the ACC network for people to buy into it and watch those games. And also the commentary could be a lot better as well. I like Eric McElwain on there, but I think the talent overall on that channel is a little bit, pretty lacking overall. But I think when you watch it, Pitt needs to do a better job of branding and getting themselves out there. And I've been a big proponent of it. They've got a beautiful studio. And if you guys have seen, maybe I could pull it up here in the comments, and show it to you guys here. Let me see here. Let's see. If it loads. Do. Let's see if they have pictures here. Images. Let's take a look here. Here we go. Now I can share my screen with you guys. These are good pictures of just the overall scanning of Pitt Studios, and why I think they should be using this more often, and why we're just letting it sit there and not doing anything with it. Here, you have Pitt Studios here. This is pretty cool. They have overall the studio here, the back behind the scenes studios. They have that setting there. They also have this setting. Numerous different areas to hold different shows here with the Pitt Studios. And again, it was a really big thing overall that we needed for the ACC network. But my biggest thing is when you're looking at this and you're looking at these different areas, Pitt needs to be more creative and get themselves out there to, one, show the program more often. And I've said it before, if 93.7 The Fan is, if they're all they're going to do is talk about, and bash Kenny Pickett because he didn't stay with the Steelers, didn't play well with the Steelers, which obviously that is 50 to 60% even more of an issue on the Steelers with the lack of the personnel that's there and why the Steelers are as bad as they are. The whole point is that Pitt has all this stuff, and I think they need to create their own channel. I think they need to create their own station for people to tune into, because I think that overall people are just not tuning into the Pat Bostic show at 8:00 in the morning on a Saturday, and that's the only time they ever have it on, which is crazy to me to think about. They had that on there for how long? And I think Pat does great interviews, but it would be better off if it was like on at the noon hour or at the 1:00 hour. But because they talk all about the Steelers, the Pirates, and the Penguins, that's kind of what takes up everything overall when it comes to 93.7 The Fan. And when you're going to have them post out about Penn State and whatnot, it's absolutely just stupid. It's a waste of our time. It's a waste of our money, to be quite frank with you. Regardless, one, Pat Narduzzi and Pitt need to win big this year. And again, we talked about their football schedule, and I posted on there, and there were some crazy things like, why there's Penn State people in the Pitt Panther Fanatics or real Pitt football talk. That was pretty crazy to watch. If I could pull up Pitt's schedule here, though. And there are a number of interesting games on this schedule this year that I look at and I say, hey, on the back end of this schedule, that's where Pitt's schedule again gets extremely difficult. I think there's some good games, obviously, in the beginning, and there's going to be some tough games there that are certainly there for the taking. Pitt needs to make sure they win those ball games. Let's see if I can share it here. If it loads. Here we go. I'll share my screen with you guys. Guys, a lot of let's see here. Looks like StreamYard's having a little bit of time loading here. There we go. So again, you have the Duquesne Dukes, the first game of the year, which obviously Pitt will take care of. Duquesne Dukes will take care of them. The Cincinnati, Central Michigan Chippewas, again, those are 2 straight home games. Preferably I think with Pitt in the scheduling, down the road, when you have 8 conference scheduled games, you've got 4 non-con games. Preferably, you would want one more P4, 1 group of 5, and potentially or 2 group of 5, and then 1 FCS. Duquesne Dukes, I think Pitt should be facing them more often, to be quite honest, because they're already in the city. The game's at Extra Stadium. That's a game for Pitt. That's an easy win for Pitt, but also to a great generator in terms of revenue because it brings more people to the ball games. Instead of having a Youngstown State or someone like that pop up. Central Michigan, that'll be an okay crowd. The third game of the year, this is where we find out right here. This is where we find out what kind of Pitt football team we have this year. The Backyard Brawl is really the game decider in terms for me. The first 2 games, I won't be judging Pitt hard because, one, they're supposed to win those games. Now, if they're close games, then I'm going to be very much on Pitt and really getting after them because those games should be easy wins for them. When at Mountaineer Field, when you're down there at Milan Pushkar Stadium in West Virginia, that's where we're going to find out this team because Rich Rodriguez, even though it's his first year, they brought in over 70 different players to their team, which is pretty crazy to think about. 70 different guys overall to a whole new roster, which is pretty crazy to think about when you have 70 new guys and what that looks like. And that's why I think the first year, West Virginia fans need to really be realistic when it comes to the wins and loss column. I think he needs to really create that new culture down there. Pitt should win that football game, but like any other backyard brawl, they're always close. They're always gritty. So I expect that game to be pretty interesting. Then they have the off week. Then you face the ranked Louisville Cardinals. I expect them to be ranked still whenever we face them. Then the Boston College Eagles. This Florida State game is going to be interesting. They're not ranked. Potentially, what they do as the season goes on, if they're actually turning around, be somewhat good this year. I know it might be a rarity. If they're good this year, they're potentially ranked. It's down at Doak Campbell Stadium. We'll continue to watch and see what that looks like. That'll be a difficult game there. The Syracuse Orange at Syracuse. I think the Syracuse is a whole different ball club because of Fran Brown, the new head football coach. He's previously there last year. His first year there, he was able to have a great success there, winning 10 football games in his first year at Syracuse. I mean, that's overall, you can't ask for better results than that. He's done a really good job in his first year there. Then you have the NC State Wolfpack. Then you have at Stanford. I think NC State being at home is a good football, is a good game. They struggled last year. Pitt should be able to take care of business there. At Stanford, I actually may travel to that game. They say it's not easy to get to, but we'll continue to watch that. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish, obviously, they're a top 10 team in the country. That's going to be certainly a difficult game. There'll be at Acrisure Stadium. I can assure you there'll be a number and a great number of Notre Dame fans there, probably between the 10 to 15,000 Notre Dame fans there, depending upon how Pitt is. If Pitt's not, if we're struggling that year, they'll probably have more Notre Dame fans there. So Notre Dame, and that's really where the last 3 games of this thing get really crazy. Notre Dame is, again, a really good football team. Georgia Tech, they were a really good football team down the stretch there. They almost beat Georgia at Georgia. If it wasn't for some bad calls, they would have certainly won that football game. I think they should have won that football game if the referees were on their were actually just playing it even, not even on their side. Then the Miami Hurricanes, I think they'll be when they start the year ranked 21. We'll see what they look like down the stretch later on that year, but they bring in Carson Beck, the quarterback transfer from Georgia. They certainly have one of the most, if not the most talented roster in the ACC. I expect them to be in contention for the ACC title. So that's going to be a game to watch for as well. So the schedule, I mean, you've got 1, Miami 1, Notre Dame 2. I'd say Georgia Tech 3, Syracuse 4, Florida State 5, Louisville 6, West Virginia 7. I mean, you got 7 tough football games on this schedule, and Pitt really needs to show itself and really produce and win these football games. If they want respect, they have to win these football games. They can talk about during the offseason how well this group's getting, how well that group's getting. I can tell you this. I think the offensive line is going to be a lot better. I think that the offensive line is going to look really good in terms of the spectrum of Jeff Percy or Kendall Stanley at left tackle. Left guard, I'm gonna make a call right now. I think that left guard position, from the battles that I've heard about, is between Keith Gavia and Jackson Brown. Jackson Brown, the returning offensive lineman on Pitt. He's done a good job this offseason. He's done a good job in spring camp. I think Jackson Brown has a really good chance to win that job. So I'm going to put it as Jeff Percy at left tackle. Left guard will be Jackson Brown, the legacy name of Pitt. At center, Lyndon Cooper. At right guard, B.J. Williams. And then at right tackle, Ryan Bayer returns to right tackle, which I think overall is his position. I think right tackle is going to be where he plays at in the National Football League. Potentially really one of the most talented, if not the most talented offensive lineman that they have. He's going to get back to form this year. And I think overall this offensive line will be better. But the biggest thing about this offensive line is now that there's depth. Behind those guys, you've got Kendall Stanley coming in, an all AAC conference offensive lineman. He's backing them up. You also have, that's 1, Isaiah Montgomery backing them up. That's 2. Keith Guvia, another backup that's there. That's 3. Then you have Caleb Holmes, 4. Ty Ray, 5. I mean, you have really 5 guys in that rotation that you say to yourself, hey, you got at least 5 guys to back you up and who have actual experience and who have actual game-like experience. That's a major factor for this team, because last year Pitt really only had 5 or 6 guys, and when we lost 2 or 3 offensive linemen, you saw the offense slow down. It wasn't as fast as what it once was. That was a big issue. The offense wasn't as fast. It wasn't producing at a high level. The touchdowns and obviously the scoring drives were never as good. The second half of the season just didn't look like the beginning portion of the Pitt football team because of the injuries. Then you saw the bowl game, which was pretty much an exhibition at that point. No one really even cared, which is on the coaching staff and on the players. Over 9 starters missing, down to your 5th string quarterback, and it wasn't fair to those guys who haven't played all year. Didn't play all year. Those guys get thrown into a game not being able to produce at a high level, missing 9 starters between offense and defense. It had a lot of effect. And the defense played really well in that football game. Down the stretch, it was just really the offense turning the football over, 2 pick sixes. That can lead you to a loss. So this year, with these guys getting paid, they got to produce and start producing at a much higher level, to say the least. All right, guys. From what I can tell here, there are no questions tonight. Smaller group. Obviously, it's a nice night. It's a nice day out, a nice night out. I know probably people are out there enjoying the great weather. I don't see any comments here, no super chats. So we'll probably cut it to 45 minutes to the show tonight. Guys, again, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. As always and forever, guys, hail to Pitt and hail to the ACC. I'll see you guys next time.